We have Kent Bailey, radio broadcaster, who's come to say a few words with us.
I run a segment called We the People on Radio 4CRB, which is all about democracy and freedom. About 12 months ago, I interviewed an imam, a priest, an Islamic priest, at a mosque. And I thought I might share with you some of the things that were said. He said to me, "Why are you here?" And I said, "Well, I've come to understand what makes a Muslim tick." And then I realised what I said. Asking a Muslim what makes them tick might be ambiguous to some people. So I roared with laughter. He didn't understand. I told him, and he saw some mild amusement. I learned direct from him that women must be covered. Allah says they must be covered except for their face, their hands and their feet. I asked him about equity for women. Is there equality in Islam for men and women? He assured me there was. I asked him, therefore, when a male dies, an Islamic male dies, what does he get in paradise? And he confirmed they get 72 virgins. This, however, is a problem on the Gold Coast. We don't have the supply, unfortunately. I asked him then, if men get 72 virgins, what do the women get? And it was one of the few times that he couldn't answer me immediately.
That's right.
And he said, and bear in mind this is me and him, one-on-one, in the end he said, will they become damsels in paradise? I asked him what a damsel in paradise was. And he said that is Muhammad's way, that is Allah's way of rewarding them. But I said, what does it mean? And he said, being a damsel in paradise means that any sense of guilt or envy is taken from the woman concerning the man having 72 virgins. This is not second-hand information. This is not from the internet. This is from me talking to a Muslim imam. Now, Muhammad, their major prophet, his first wife was Aisha. She was 6 years old. But he didn't consummate the marriage until she was 9, because he's a considerate man. I have Christian beliefs, and if Jesus Christ had been a pedophile, I wouldn't follow him. The explanation for that taking a young wife is because in Islam it's okay to have sex with them once they've reached puberty. So we assume that 9 years old, Aisha had reached puberty and therefore it was okay. Now I don't care if it was 1600 or 1800 years ago. It is what it is. Now let's say that back then the rules were different, and they were. I wouldn't today follow someone or a religion or a party that had beliefs like that, because the beliefs become more radical, more instilled and more dangerous over the time, and they underpin, especially the males, wish and desire to do all sorts of things which most normal Australians reject.
That's right.
And that's one of the reasons I agree with convincing the council not to go ahead with this mosque.
Exactly.
It will be, as many mosques are, the epicentre for a new community who believe in laws and rules and a religion that most of us do not. My father fought in the Second World War and walked the Kokoda track, and he did not fight for this aberrated freedom. It's the freedom which welcomes people to this country from all nations. And if the mix is right, it will work. However, Islam is not a race. It's a system. It's a system of legal violence and hate and envy. I want a country that's peaceful in the future for my children and my grandchildren and their children. And the buck stops with us now, right here. Now in Australia we have what's called the separation of powers. This ensures that power does not reside in one place or with one person, excessively. That the church and state are separate. One does not mix with the other. And I think this is a right and proper thing. I put this to the priest, the imam, and he said, yes. He said, we believe in that. Now, I'll come back to this point in a moment. I pressed him on the importance of integration. He said, categorically, Muslims will integrate. It is very important, and in his mosque, they are encouraged to do so. But get this, after talking to me for a couple of minutes on that subject, he said, so I repeat, we will integrate, but we will never assimilate. Integration in my world is like stepping into the river. But when you assimilate, you step in and become part of the river. And so it's the difference, the subtle difference between assimilation and integration that we need to watch, because they have no intention of assimilating. And when they come to Australia, they take an oath of allegiance. And I want to read that to you. It's only about 5 lines. This is the oath of allegiance that most of you will never have heard. And they pledge this. From this time forward, under God, I pledge my loyalty to Australia and its people, whose democratic beliefs I share, whose rights and liberties I respect, and whose laws I will uphold and obey. Now we come back to the separation of powers. The Imam told me categorically that Sharia law, which is the law of Islam, and the religion cannot be separated. The law was handed to them by Allah. Now, if they believe, and they do, that the law and their religion cannot be separated, then they cannot believe in the separation of powers that function in this country. And when they take that oath, I put it to you, it's a lie. Yes. On the internet, I was doing some research about all this. Here's Larry, so I won't take up too much time. On the internet, I did some research, and I discovered the Muslim people have actually written, produced, and put on site a new constitution for Australia. You might say, well, they have no chance. Well, maybe they don't. But they will if Australian people remain lethargic. I think mosques are a place of anger, an epicentre to gather together their own community to prevent integration and assimilation. And from there, who knows what happens. Section 51 of the Australian Constitution, Part 26, allows the federal government to pass laws concerning any culture or religion or people, not commonly known. The answer lies in 5126, in my view, if it's got to reach that point. We hope it doesn't. You want to live here in Australia in peace and harmony and assimilate, because we owe it to all the men and women who fought in all the battles all around the world for the last 100 years. We owe it to them to do that. And I imagine today amongst you there's probably people from 20 different nations. And of course, we're all welcome. But I don't think the Islamic religion cares about that. Their Prophet Muhammad has made some very specific claims that they must go throughout the world and inject their religion into countries whether they like it or not. Don't take my word for it. Read the Quran. Yes. Although you'd be bored brainless, I can tell you. For these and other reasons, there should be no mosque at Currumbin, as it's offensive to us and not in the long-term interests of Australia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kent Bailey. I consider Kent Bailey to be an Australian hero.